The desert winds howled across the New Mexico research station as Raven Harrison finished her evening rounds. As the station's chief medical officer, her usual patients were researchers with heat exhaustion or the occasional scorpion sting. Tonight, however, would change everything she thought she knew about medicine and humanity's place in the universe. The first warning came as a deep vibration that rattled the medical equipment in her office. Raven looked up from her reports, dark eyes narrowing as she noticed the strange purple light filtering through her window. The light pulsed in an irregular pattern, unlike anything she'd seen in her 3 years at the station. Dr. Harrison to the observation deck, crackled her radio. We're picking up some unusual readings. Raven grabbed her medical kit, a habit from her years as an emergency responder, and headed upstairs. The observation deck was chaos, with researchers crowded around monitors displaying bizarre energy signatures. It's about 30 miles south, said Dr. Weber, the lead physicist. Whatever it is, it's putting out more energy than anything we've ever recorded. Before anyone could respond, a brilliant flash lit up the horizon. The shock wave hit moments later, rattling the windows and sending papers flying. Without waiting for orders, Raven was already moving. I'm taking the emergency vehicle, she announced, checking the coordinates on her tablet. If something crashed out there, there might be people who need help. The drive through the desert night was tense. The purple glow grew stronger as she approached, casting eerie shadows among the cacti and rock formations. When she crested the final ridge, Raven's breath caught in her throat. A sleek vessel lay half buried in the sand, its metallic surface rippling with colors that shouldn't exist in nature. It was clearly no experimental aircraft, its design defied human engineering. Steam rose from its hull, and pieces of what looked like living metal were scattered across the impact zone. Raven approached cautiously, her medical scanner active. The device was going haywire, detecting life signs it couldn't classify. A section of the hull had split open, revealing a dim interior. Strange symbols pulsed along the walls, casting shifting shadows. "Hello?" she called out, switching on her headlamp. "I'm a doctor. I'm here to help." A soft moan answered her. Raven climbed carefully through the breach, her boots crunching on crystalline debris. The air inside smelled of ozone and something sweet she couldn't identify. She found the ship's occupant in what appeared to be a control room. The being lay crumpled beside a console that seemed to be made of flowing light. Raven's medical training warred with her shock. The creature was humanoid but clearly alien, with iridescent skin that shifted between deep purple and midnight blue. Delicate patterns of light traced across its body like bioluminescent tattoos. The alien's eyes opened, 3 of them, arranged in a triangle, and focused on Raven. To her surprise, it spoke in perfect English, though its voice had an ethereal, musical quality. You are a healer?" it asked. "Yes," Raven replied, already assessing the alien's injuries. "I'm Dr. Harrison. Can you tell me where you're hurt?" "The translation matrix works," the alien said weakly. "I am Zarin, royal guardian of the Luminarch Ascendancy. Please, you must help me protect it." "Protect what?" Zarin's hand trembled as it pointed to a small crystalline pod tucked into a recess in the wall. Inside, Raven could see what appeared to be a child, an alien child, floating in a shimming field of energy. "The future of 2 civilizations," Zarin whispered. "They will come for it. You must." The Guardian's voice faltered as its lights dimmed. Raven's training took over. She might not understand alien physiology, but she recognized shock when she saw it. Working quickly, she applied emergency trauma procedures, adapting them as best she could for her unusual patient. The alien's bioluminescence responded to her treatments, growing stronger as she worked. A deep thrumming suddenly filled the air. Zarin's eyes widened in fear. "They're here," the Guardian gasped. "The Shadowborn they cannot be allowed to find." Multiple impacts shook the ground outside. Raven heard the sound of heavy footsteps approaching the ship. Her patient grabbed her arm with surprising strength. "Take the pod," Zarin commanded. "Run. I will hold them off. The child must survive, the future of both our peoples depends on it." Raven wanted to argue, to insist on saving them both, but the look in Zarin's eyes told her there was no time. She quickly grabbed the crystal pod, surprised by how light it was. As she turned to leave, Zarin pressed a small device into her hand. "When you reach safety, activate this. The Luminarch will come. Tell them Zarin gave their life protecting the Starchild. Now go." Raven ran, clutching the pod to her chest. Behind her, she heard sounds of energy weapons and Zarin's defiant shouts. The desert night had erupted into chaos, but her focus remained singular: protect her patient, both of them, at all costs. As she ran through the darkness, the child in the pod stirred, 3 tiny eyes opening to meet her gaze. In that moment, Raven Harrison realized she had become part of something far bigger than herself. Her world had changed forever, and now she carried the weight of 2 civilizations in her arms. The Desert Research Station's underground bunker had never been used for its intended purpose until now. Raven sat beside the crystal pod, monitoring the alien child's vital signs with a mixture of medical equipment and intuition. The pod's own systems pulsed with a steady rhythm that seemed to mirror a heartbeat. The sound of footsteps made her tense, but it was only Dr. Weber approaching with fresh supplies. After witnessing the firefight at the crash site, the entire research team had rallied to help without question. "Any change?" Weber asked, setting down a case of monitoring equipment. "The pod's energy field is stable," Raven replied. "And the child? I think it's dreaming." The tiny being inside the crystalline chamber would occasionally move, its bioluminescent patterns shifting through colors she had no names for. The device Zarin had given her sat on a nearby table, still silent. Raven had activated it hours ago, but there was no way to know if its signal had reached its intended recipients. The Shadowborn hadn't found the station yet, but it was only a matter of time. A sudden alert from their perimeter sensors cut through the quiet. Weber rushed to check the monitors, but instead of the dreaded Shadowborn signatures, something else appeared in the sky. "Multiple contacts," he reported. "But the energy patterns, they're different. Similar to the first ship, but much larger." The device on the table hummed to life, projecting a holographic message. A face similar to Zarin's appeared, but with more elaborate luminescent markings. "We have received the Guardian signal," the figure announced. "We approach in peace. Please bring the Starchild to these coordinates." Raven studied the displayed location, a clearing several miles from the station. "It could be a trap," Weber warned. "No," Raven said, watching the child in the pod. "Zarin gave their life to protect this child. We have to trust that they sent help." The journey to the meeting point was tense. Raven drove the research station's most robust vehicle, the crystal pod secured beside her. Weber followed in a second vehicle with a security team, just in case. They arrived to find 3 ships hovering silently above the desert floor. Unlike the angular, predatory design of the Shadowborn vessels, these craft seemed to flow like liquid starlight. A beam of soft radiance descended from the largest ship, and within it appeared a group of beings. Their leader stepped forward, tall and regal, with patterns of light that formed what appeared to be ceremonial markings. "I am High Sentinel Naira of the Luminarch Ascendancy," she announced. "We owe you a great debt, Dr. Harrison." "How do you know my name?" Zarin's final transmission included everything. "Their sacrifice will be remembered." Naira's 3 eyes focused on the pod. "The Starchild lives. You have done more than save a life, Doctor. You have preserved hope." The High Sentinel explained that the child was no ordinary member of their species. It was the first naturally born Luminarch in 3 generations. Their civilization had grown sterile, dependent on artificial reproduction. This child represented a possible cure for their species' decline. The Shadowborn are a faction that believes we should simply take what we need from other species, Naira said. They would have used the child's unique genetic pattern to create weapons, tools to harvest the essence of other races. We cannot allow this. So what happens now? Raven asked. We must ask more of you, Dr. Harrison. The child has bonded with you, see how their lights mirror your presence? They must be protected while we deal with the Shadowborn threat, and our cities are no longer safe. You want me to keep hiding them? No, Naira replied. We want you to come with us. Your medical knowledge, combined with our science, might be the key to understanding the child's unique nature. And perhaps, to building a bridge between our peoples. Weber stepped forward. You're talking about first contact, official contact with humanity. Yes. The time for isolation has passed. The Shadowborn have already exposed our existence. We prefer to do this properly, through peaceful exchange. A distant explosion lit up the horizon. Naira's expression darkened. They approach. You must decide quickly, Dr. Harrison. Will you help us protect the child and forge an alliance between our worlds? Raven looked at the pod, at the tiny being whose patterns now pulsed in sync with her own heartbeat. She thought of Zaren's sacrifice, of the trust placed in her by both a dying guardian and a desperate civilization. I'll do it, she said. But I have conditions. My research team gets involved, properly, with full disclosure. And we do this right, no more secrets, no more hidden agendas. Naira's patterns brightened in what Raven was learning to recognize as approval. Agreed. The time of shadows is ending. Together, we will build something new. As they boarded the Luminarch vessel, Raven carried the crystal pod carefully. The child inside stirred, its tiny hand pressing against the crystalline surface. 3 eyes met hers with what could only be described as trust. Weber and his team followed, coordinating with their colleagues back at the station. Humanity's first official contact with an alien civilization was about to begin, not with conquest or fear, but with an act of compassion and a shared hope for the future. The ship rose into the night sky as the Shadowborn vessels appeared on the horizon. But Raven wasn't afraid. She had made her choice, and with it, the destiny of 2 species had become intertwined. The real journey was just beginning. The Luminarch vessel's medical bay defied everything Raven thought she knew about technology. Walls of living crystal pulsed with diagnostic information, while streams of light performed the work of surgical tools. Her team from the research station watched in amazement as Naira demonstrated their medical systems. The Starchild's pod had been integrated into a larger healing chamber, where the young Luminarch floated peacefully. Over the past week, Raven had learned the child's name was Lyra, though the full pronunciation included subtle light patterns she couldn't replicate. Your primitive medical techniques saved both Zaren and Lyra, Naira observed, studying Raven's Earth-made medical kit. We had forgotten such methods were possible. Our dependence on technology has become both our strength and our weakness. Weber, who had been analyzing Luminarch data with permission, looked up from his tablet. Your civilization's technological advancement is incredible, but I've noticed something strange in these medical records. Your species' genetic diversity has been declining for centuries. Why? Naira's patterns dimmed slightly, what Raven now recognized as discomfort. It was a choice made long ago. We engineered ourselves for longevity and intelligence, but there were unexpected consequences. A sudden alert interrupted them. Another Luminarch, whom Raven knew as First Scholar Thorn, rushed into the medical bay. Hi Sentinel, we've detected Shadowborn energy signatures approaching Earth's solar system. How? The dimensional barriers should have hidden our trajectory, Naira said. They're not following us, Thorne replied. They're amassing a fleet. Early projections suggest they plan to target Earth directly. Raven felt her blood run cold. Earth? Why would they attack my planet? Because of what you represent, Weber said quietly, still studying his data. I think I understand now. The Shadowborn aren't just after Lyra, are they? They're after humanity itself. Naira's patterns shifted through complex emotions. You are correct, Dr. Weber. Humanity possesses something our species has lost, the ability to adapt, to evolve naturally. The Shadowborn believe the solution to our genetic stagnation lies in harvesting these traits from compatible species. And we're compatible? Raven asked, though she already knew the answer. She had seen how human medical techniques worked on Luminarch physiology. More than compatible, Thorne added. Your species might be the key to our survival. But the Shadowborn's methods would mean humanity's extinction. The medical bay's crystal walls suddenly flickered with new information. Lyra's pod was displaying unusual readings. The child's patterns had begun shifting rapidly, forming complex sequences Raven had never seen before. Impossible, Thorne whispered. Those are ancestral patterns, genetic memories we thought lost millennia ago. Raven moved closer to the pod. What does it mean? It means, Naira said, that Lyra is showing us another way. The child's natural birth has unlocked genetic potential we thought lost forever. And their interaction with you, Dr. Harrison, seems to be catalyzing further changes. Weber set down his tablet. You're saying the child is naturally developing the adaptability you've been seeking? Without genetic harvesting or engineering? Yes. Lyra's patterns show signs of incorporating beneficial traits through simple proximity and interaction with humans. It's subtle, natural. Naira's patterns brightened. Everything the Shadowborn's brutal methods are not. A new alert sounded, more urgent this time. The ship's commander, Vertex, appeared on a holographic display. Hi Sentinel, we've intercepted Shadowborn communications. They're not just planning to attack Earth. They've discovered the location of the Luminarch homeworld's defense codes in a forgotten archive. They mean to strike both worlds simultaneously. Raven looked at Lyra, floating peacefully despite the crisis unfolding around them. The child's patterns had stabilized into a gentle rhythm that somehow combined Luminarch complexity with human stability. There's another way, Raven said firmly. You're looking at it. Lyra proves that cooperation between our species can achieve naturally what the Shadowborn want to take by force. A noble sentiment, Vertex replied, but we don't have time to wait for natural evolution. The Shadowborn fleet launches in 15 planetary rotations. Then we make them wait, Weber said, surprising everyone. Look at these readings. The barrier technology you use to hide your ships, it's based on the same principles as your genetic engineering, isn't it? What if we could adapt it, create a shield that protects both Earth and your homeworld? Thorne's patterns shifted with excitement. Using Lyra's hybrid genetic patterns as a template, yes, it could work. But we would need enormous power sources. Earth has those, Raven said. If we work together openly, combine your knowledge with our resources. It would mean revealing ourselves to your entire world, Naira cautioned. Maybe it's time, Raven replied. Look at how our small team has adapted to working with you. Humanity can handle the truth, especially if it comes with an opportunity to achieve something extraordinary together. Lyra stirred in her pod, pressing one tiny hand against the crystal. Her patterns had shifted again, now displaying a perfect blend of Luminarch complexity and human rhythms. She was living proof that their species could do more than coexist, they could help each other evolve and grow stronger together. The child shows us the path, Naira said finally. We've hidden in the shadows for too long, protecting our civilization at the cost of its soul. Perhaps it's time for both our species to step into the light. As if in response, Lyra's patterns blazed with unprecedented brightness. In that glow, Raven saw the future taking shape, not one of conflict and genetic theft, but of cooperation and mutual growth. They had 2 weeks to save 2 worlds, and it would take both species' greatest strengths to succeed. The United Nations emergency session buzzed with tension as Raven finished presenting the evidence of both the Luminarch existence and the Shadowborn threat. Behind her, Naira stood with her patterns glowing steadily, a living testament to the reality of extraterrestrial life. "You're telling us," the Secretary-General said, "that humanity has 1 week to prepare for potential invasion, and our best hope is to merge our technology with alien science we barely understand?" "No," Raven replied. "I'm telling you we have an opportunity to forge an alliance that could advance both our species by centuries. The Shadowborn threat is real, but it's also a catalyst for something extraordinary." Weber stepped forward, displaying complex technical diagrams. "We've already successfully merged Luminarch barrier technology with our power grid in New Mexico. The results exceeded all expectations." The images showed the desert research station surrounded by a subtle distortion field, a shield that made the facility virtually undetectable. But more importantly, the readings showed something unexpected. "The barrier isn't just protecting the station," Weber explained. "It's improving it. The merged technology is actually enhancing our existing systems, making them more efficient. It's exactly what we've seen happening with Lyra's genetic patterns on a biological level." Across the globe, other research teams had begun working with Luminarch scientists. The initial shock of first contact had quickly given way to passionate collaboration. Human adaptability and creative problem-solving complemented Luminarch precision and advanced understanding. But not everyone was convinced. "This could be an elaborate deception," one delegate warned. "How do we know the Shadowborn aren't a fabrication to gain our trust?" As if on cue, alarms blared throughout the building. Naira's patterns shifted to alert status as she received information through her neural link. "They're testing our defenses," she announced. "A Shadowborn scout ship just attempted to breach Earth's atmosphere over the Pacific." Military commanders rushed to their communications devices, confirming the incident. The scout ship had been repelled by one of the newly installed hybrid barrier segments, but the encounter left no doubt about the threat's reality. "The Shadowborn aren't testing our defenses," Raven realized, studying the attack pattern. "They're testing our unity. They want to see how our species work together under pressure." In the medical bay aboard the Luminarch vessel, now docked near the UN, Lyra's pod showed unusual activity. The child's patterns had begun replicating the frequency of the hybrid barriers, but with subtle improvements. "She's showing us the way again," Raven said, after examining the readings. "Look at these harmonic patterns. If we adjust our shield grid to match." Weber's eyes widened as he ran the calculations. It would increase efficiency by 300% while reducing power consumption. But more importantly, it would create a resonance pattern that could disrupt Shadowborn tech. The next few days were a blur of activity. Around the world, human and Luminarch scientists worked to implement Lyra's improvements. Power plants were modified, satellites reprogrammed. The child's natural hybrid genetics had revealed principles that neither species had discovered alone. But the Shadowborn weren't idle. More scout ships appeared, each probe more aggressive than the last. And then, during a crucial shield test, something went wrong. "Sabotage," Naira reported grimly. "Someone destroyed a key power relay in Beijing. The attack pattern matches Shadowborn energy signatures, but they couldn't have gotten through our detection grid," Weber finished. "Which means they have help from inside," Raven concluded. "Someone on Earth is working with them." The revelation sparked a security crisis. Both human and Luminarch authorities began investigating their own ranks. Trust, so carefully built over the past weeks, threatened to unravel. Raven found herself back in the medical bay, seeking clarity. Lyra floated in her pod, patterns swirling with what seemed like concern. The child had become a symbol of cooperation between their species, living proof that they were stronger together. "We can't let fear divide us," Raven said. "That's what they want." She noticed something odd in Lyra's latest readings. The child's patterns contained a new sequence, one that matched fragments of code found in the sabotaged relay. "It's not just Earth," Raven realized. "Weber. Check the Luminarch databases. I think the Shadowborn have been playing a longer game than we realized." Weber's investigation confirmed her suspicion. The Shadowborn weren't just a rebellious faction, they were the product of an ancient Luminarch experiment gone wrong. Their aggressive nature came from early, failed attempts to forcibly integrate traits from other species. "They're us," Nyra said, her patterns dark with shame. "A mirror of what we could become if we choose the wrong path. That's why they're so determined to prevent our species from working together naturally." The sabotage had crippled a quarter of Earth's hybrid shield network. The Shadowborn fleet would arrive in less than 48 hours. But now they understood what they were really fighting, not just an external enemy, but the temptation to force evolution rather than earn it through cooperation. As emergency repairs began, Raven looked at Lyra's pod, at the child who had shown them a better way. The real test wasn't whether their technology could withstand the Shadowborn attack. It was whether their newfound trust in each other could survive the coming storm. The Shadowborn fleet emerged from hyperspace like a storm of black lightning. Hundreds of ships, each bristling with weapons designed to harvest genetic material by force. Earth's hybrid shield network hummed to life, its patterns matching the harmonics that Lyra had shown them. In the combined command center beneath the UN building, humans and Luminarch worked side by side. Raven stood with Nyra, watching as Weber coordinated the global defense grid from his station. "They're scanning for weaknesses," Nyra reported, her patterns tense. "The sabotage sectors are still vulnerable. Then we give them what they're looking for," came a voice. Admiral Santos of the Earth Defense Coalition stepped forward. "Make them think they've found our weak point." The strategy was risky but elegant. While the Shadowborn concentrated their attack on the seemingly vulnerable shields, engineer teams would channel excess power through the undamaged sectors, creating a resonance cascade that could disable the enemy fleet. But the Shadowborn commander was no fool. As the battle began, their ships split into smaller groups, probing multiple sectors simultaneously. Each attack tested not just the shields, but the coordination between human and Luminarch defenders. In the medical bay, Lyra's pod began to pulse with unprecedented intensity. Raven rushed to check on the child, but what she found wasn't distress, it was purpose. The young Luminarch's patterns had aligned perfectly with the shield harmonics, showing modifications that could strengthen the entire network. "She's not just adapting to human genetic patterns," Raven realized. "She's learning to bridge the gap between our species actively, intentionally." Weber's voice crackled over the comm, multiple breaches detected. "They're targeting power stations in Asia and Europe." The Shadowborn attack was devastating in its precision. Shields began failing across the globe as power relays overloaded. But then something extraordinary happened. In cities worldwide, civilians of both species joined together to create makeshift power connections, rerouting energy through unconventional channels to maintain the barriers. "Look at these readings," Weber said in amazement. "The improvised power grid, it's actually more efficient than our original design. The human adaptations combined with Luminarch technology, it's creating new patterns we never imagined." The Shadowborn commander's voice boomed across all frequencies, "Your species are weak. Natural evolution is too slow. We offer perfection through force." "No," Raven responded, broadcasting globally. You offer stagnation through control. Look at what we've achieved in weeks by working together. Lyra shows us that true evolution comes from cooperation, not conquest. As if in response, Lyra's pod released a pulse of energy that resonated through the entire shield network. The child's naturally evolved hybrid patterns amplified the defensive grid exponentially. Shadowborn weapons that struck the barriers didn't just fail, their energy was absorbed and redistributed, strengthening the shields further. The enemy fleet faltered, their fundamental assumption proven wrong. They had believed that genetic advancement could only come through force and careful control. The sight of two species achieving naturally what they had failed to take by force shook their conviction. Your way has failed, Nyra broadcasted to the Shadowborn. Return to us. Help us build something new, not through dominance, but through mutual growth. For a tense moment, the outcome hung in balance. Then, one by one, Shadowborn ships began powering down their weapons. Their commander's response came slowly. We believed we were the next step in evolution. But we were holding ourselves back. The victory wasn't just in repelling the invasion. As the Shadowborn fleet stood down, the true achievement became clear. Humanity and the Luminarch had proven that cooperation between species could achieve more than conflict ever could. In the aftermath, Lyra's pod was moved to a new research center, jointly operated by both species. The child who had shown them a better path became the first of many natural bridges between their civilizations. Other Luminarch children began displaying similar adaptations, while human scientists discovered their own latent abilities awakening through peaceful interaction with their new allies. 1 year later, Raven stood with Weber and Nyra, watching Lyra take her first steps outside her pod. The child's patterns rippled with joy as she reached out to touch both her Luminarch guardians and her human friends. She's the future, Raven said softly. Not just her genetics, but what she represents, the choice to grow together rather than struggle separately. A future we nearly lost to fear and pride, Nyra added, her patterns glowing with hope. Weber smiled, checking readings on his hybrid tablet. According to these projections, this is just the beginning. Both our species are already showing signs of positive evolution, simply from living and working together. Above them, the hybrid shield network had become permanent, not just a defense system but a symbol of their partnership. Ships of both species passed through it freely, carrying scientists, diplomats, and families between Earth and the Luminarch homeworld. The Shadowborn, too, had found a place in this new order. Their knowledge, once turned to conquest, now served to help understand and guide the natural evolution they had sought to force. As the twin suns set on another day of shared discovery, Lyra's laughter echoed through halls built by both species. Her very existence was proof that the greatest advances come not from domination or control, but from the simple choice to reach out to those who seem different, and grow together in the light of understanding.